we're back. All right, so in this segment, we will be installing the lower mount Fender Eliminator on our basic kit. This assembly comes with the bracket you see here and also the appropriate hardware to mount it in place. Now, this hardware just replaces the bottom hardware here. The hardware we used from the top of the bike remains as per the first installation. So, give you a little bit of detail. The bracket mounts in this location and it holds your license plate this angle in this location. So some guys actually prefer it here. And if that's not you, we will have another segment right after this one where we will install a different version of a bracket that holds your license plate there. All right, so let's begin by removing these two screws. If you remember, we used a 10mm socket on top and a 4mm Allen on the bottom. And grab your bracket, grab one of the long screws, drop one of these washers on, get it seated on this surface of the smaller tab on your bracket. Get it through that hole again, align it with the washer on top and the nut that remained in place. Get your thread engaged and move on to the other side. Same concept on the other side. We get a washer dropped onto the screw, get it on the surface that it will clamp. Insert in, engage thread. Now these screws, you will notice, protrude pretty far, and we kept them at a pretty long length on purpose. We have a low mount exhaust here, basically in the stock configuration. This is an Arrow. We noticed that the Taiga exhaust is very, very popular, and it has a bracket that mounts here. So we kept the screws very long so that you could clamp this bracket onto the Taiga exhaust bracket and into the bike, and it still works just fine. So for our configuration here, we will basically just tighten this all up and then be good to go. If you are not using a license plate light with this setup, you will turn these all the way in and tighten them up. I recommend snugging them up until they bottom out, but leave a little bit of adjustability so that you could center your bracket. The locations where the screws go through in this bracket are actually slots, and they enable you to move this back and forth, left to right a little bit. So if you keep it just a little bit loose, you'll be able to move it side to side until it's where you like it to be. So here we go, snug it up. Once again, you do not want to smush the built-in spacers that are built into the Undertail. Those are the components that space this surface at an appropriate distance from the frame. These screws go through, you have washers on both sides, and then you have a nylock nut. That nut will not loosen. It doesn't have to be clamped down really hard. So once you feel resistance, give it a quarter turn and you're done. All right, so this is what this assembly will look like with the plate hanging here. What I want to do is back out one step and show you guys how to install our Stealth license plate light with this kit. Now, this is a separate component. It doesn't come by default with any of our parts. This is an add-on, costs roughly 10 bucks to add it on. Lights up your license really nicely, and it pretty much almost disappears right behind it. When mounted, looks like this, points right at the surface of the license plate. and does the job really good. So to get it into this configuration, we will need to loosen every single connection here. There are 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. All of those screws will have to back out. I would say give it about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch so that we could loosen this and get our wire behind the undertail. Let's see. All right, I have a little bit more than a 1/2 inch here. If you have the room on the screw, the more adjustability you have, the easier this will be to do. Let's see, give it a little bit more. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna grab a Phillips screwdriver and remove these 2 screws that attach the painted surface of the bike to our undertail. The idea is to loosen up the undertail enough so it pops down and gives us a little bit of a gap to run a wire through. So obviously this requires disassembly again after we've assembled this in the previous section of this video. If you guys watch through this video and then decide which steps you will be taking, you can combine these steps and don't have to remove any of this. I just chose to do this video in a way that it's presented in modules. So hopefully you guys will watch the entire video before you take any steps. That way you don't have to disassemble, reassemble, take all those steps. All right, so I've taken my tying device off of the license plate light wire, stretch out the wire, it's nicely insulated, so it'll make for an easy snaking job. Now, in the forward section here, on the right side of the bike, there are gaps. So you could just get that in there first. Feed the license plate light wire through the center triangle of this bracket. Milk it up to the top, and then get your wire in through those little gaps. And as you push that wire in, it'll come out the top and you'll be able to grab it and move forward. All right, so you want your setup to end up looking like this. Leave a little bit of slack so that when everything's tightened down, you have a little bit of leeway on that wire. You don't want it to be straining the connection into the actual capsule. You have a lot of excess here. I will show you a little bit later how to get that connected to your bike. Let's just worry about the mechanical connections right now. Let's go ahead and tighten the bracket down. Once again, I'm going to leave a little bit of adjustability in my setup so that I can center it before I tighten it all down. And also make sure that I have enough slack before I tighten everything down and lock it in place. All right, let's see. I do in fact have enough slack, and let's move it to the center. Now we are center. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this down. There we go. Then I'm going to go up top and replace those 2 Phillips screws that hold the painted fairing into our undertail. The ones with the shoulders. It seems as though we're not popped in here. Let's make sure that all the components are engaged as I showed you guys in the first section of this video. We have a running tab around the entire perimeter of the undertail that needs to be held in within the other fairings. Done that now. I can replace those screws. Leave them loose at first. Just engage the thread. And then make sure to adjust so that there is no gaps. Let's see, that looks really good. And now I'm going to tighten these two connections. All right, so now we'll grab the hardware for our license plate. And get our license plate on. As you can see here, there is a strip of double-side tape. I actually never use it because my license plates come off and go on. For those of you guys that want that extra security, we added high bond 3M tape. It's some really killer stuff, but once you use it and you want to replace it, you need some new double-side tape. We've had really good experience with just clamping this in place, which is the main mode of assembly here. It never vibrates out and does the job really well. So you can choose whichever way you guys want to go. And there we go. Center your plate, tighten it down, and now this setup's ready to go. One remaining step is the connection of the license plate light. I will show that at the end of this video because I want to do it once and we still have one segment to tape. So look for that segment at the end of this video. I'm going to tear this down now and we're going to restart and install the rear mount license plate bracket and the license plate light. All right, so if you've decided to go with the rear mount license plate kit, then the hardware provided with this kit, which is 2 screws and 2 washers, will basically be replacing the bottom portion of the hardware in the basic Undertail kit, and the washer and top on top of this assembly will be reused. So this is a very simple installation. This one doesn't require removing anything. Hold your license plate in this position. All right, so we will back out these screws using a 4mm Allen on the bottom, 10mm socket on top. Now when you remove these completely, you have to be mindful to not drop the nut or the washer in the tube right in front of it. There's a subframe tube that leads to the front. If you drop the nut in there, it will fall out the front, but chances are it'll get caught up in the bodywork. So I typically just take out the nut, leave the washer in, and move on to the next side. All right, so now we can just grab the hardware that came with this bracket kit. Washer on top of the screw. Get it through one of the holes. Get it in through the undertail, but for this step I like to hold the washer from up top so it doesn't get pushed up and get dropped into that tube I was talking about. I'm going to get ready with my Allen key in here so I can start turning while I hold my nut. This is made vastly easier by the use of needle nose pliers, but I don't have them handy right next to me right now, so I'm going to use my hands. Engage the thread, move on to the other side. Same hardware set for the other side. Same procedure. Hold the washer. At this point, we can just Tighten all this stuff up. And there it is. If you guys are doing a license plate light on this setup, we actually did not leave a hole to pass the wire through, but we did leave a mark where you will need to drill with a 1/8 inch drill bit. I have that prepped here. I'll show you on a separate unit. This mark right here, just center the drill on that. And this is where you will drill a 1/8 inch hole. And that will pass your license plate light wire through to the inside. You'll be good to go. Now drill nice and slow. And there we go. I like to open up the hole a little bit by running the drill around. And let's see if it'll actually fit. So the wires pass through no problem, and the wire casing passes through. All right, so now we're ready to feed the license plate wire through the front triangle here. The license plate light will end up sitting here. That's why we want it through this triangle. Now we'll feed this wire to the inside of the bike. And that is readily accessible from the top. This is very easy. This installation is a little bit easier than the deep mount license plate that we have. All right, here we go. I like to leave a little bit of slack, but this can be adjusted at any given point. I'm going to leave this wire that penetrated through the top just laying here. I will show you guys how to connect this into your harness a little bit later. Now, get the license plate on using the hardware that you took off the bike in a previous step. If you are using the adhesive on our license plate light, you need to strip the masking off of it before you put your license plate on and get it adhered to the back. I typically don't use it. That is why I skipped that step. Now I want to center this, and it's already centered, so we're good to go. Tighten this down. All right, so now I'm going to show you guys how to wire this up. Whether you have this coming out of the back here or through the undertail and out this way, depending on which bracket you went with, you will probably want to route this through all the routing guides that the bike already has in place. I'm not going to open this guy up. It's easier just to push this through. It's already locked in place. All right, I like to run everything around the perimeter through all these guides out here. There's a guide in here that I just undid, and the one that just presses in place. I'm gonna pass around that guide, get the wire hidden, and this guide here, and then smush it in place again. Get it to be held nice and neat in this position. Now it's out of the way, and now we have this excess. You could probably cut it down and then restrip it. I typically just bunch it up in the side, and then you're good to go. On the license plate light, red is positive, black is negative. I'm gonna remove some of the excess wiring here. This is our sub harness that connects this tail light to this bike specifically. I'm gonna pull off the 4-connection Sumitomo plug and focus on the bike side of the harness here. You have blue and orange, which are signaling positive wires. If you flip this over, you have a green and black. So the green on the Hondas is typically ground. I have verified that, in fact, on this bike, green is ground. So the remaining wire here, the black one, is the positive license plate light wire. So this is going to seem a little bit weird, but we are going to plug in the red to the black and the black from the license plate light to the green. Now, how do we make this connection? Each one of our Stealth license plate lights comes with this really neat posi tap connector. You unscrew the base and it has a slot in it, and that's where the wire that you're connecting into goes. And the other side screws on and it has a piercing element. I don't know if you guys can see it against this background, but it's a little sharp point. So let's grab ourselves the black wire on the harness, which will be our positive license plate light wire, and get that wire into the slot of our connector. This is a pretty tight connection here. I'm going to get the wire separated from the other wires and get the base on. And now you just screw the other component onto this until you bottom out, and now you have your connection. So on the green wire, I'm going to separate it from the loom, grab the other connector that came with the license plate light, and I'm going to choose to put that on a little bit down the line so that when you get them back together, they're not banging against each other and causing a big bulk. So same step to make the connection here. Screw this on until you bottom it out against the insulation from the wire, and now we will just unscrew the other portion on the skinnier diameter of this connector. So now I have the green wire opened. We are going to be connecting the black wire from our license plate light into this setup. So you have your threaded portion of the connector, and you have the knurled portion. You will put the wire through this way. Make sure that some of it is sticking out. And now make that connection by screwing this on this portion that we fed the wire through. Make sure you get it nice and tight and tug on it a little bit just to make sure that you've made that connection and won't vibrate loose. Repeat the steps on the other wire. Same thing, feed it through. It needs to protrude out of the threaded end. Then it goes into this receiver, thread it on, and that clamps it in place, and we're good to go. All right, now we can plug this back together and get these wires hidden in the side here. You can use a zip tie if you wish. I feel like all these components here with the routing guides actually do a really good job of holding the wires bundled. And now I will just test the setup, make sure we have light. All right, and it looks like we've connected the license plate light successfully. So now this installation is pretty much complete. We would just replace the bike seat, and then the bike is ready to go. Now, I just want to note that some of you guys, I noticed, want to have the option to bend the license plate bracket to make it conform to more of an angle that you are looking for. I do not recommend bending these brackets any more than 10 degrees. They are powder coated galvanneal steel. They are coated underneath the powder coat with a substance that prevents rusting, but still, once you bend it, you've strained the bracket, and chances are down the road it might fall off because you've bent it. So for that, I invite you to check out the video we will have shortly on the installation of our Elite 1 adjustable bracket for this setup. There's a really nice CNC machined aluminum component. It's black anodized, and it features all stainless steel hardware for nice durability and longevity. All right guys, I really enjoyed performing this installation for you, and I hope that you enjoyed the video. You can see behind me we have a low mount exhaust and a high mount Taiga exhaust. We have the standard mount license plate bracket and a forward mount license plate bracket. We have a nice vast mixture of components here to show you that our setup is really versatile and it'll work with just about anything. Furthermore, it really continues the lines intended by the Honda engineers on this bike that stopped abruptly in the Fender setup, and now they're actually carried through all the way to the tail. And you have your signals integrated into the taillight. Taillight's available in smoked or clear. What else can I say? I think this is the sexiest and sleekest and nicest setup for the back of the second generation Grom. Anyhow, I hope you guys hit the subscribe button, and I'd love to hear from you. We like hearing what you guys have to say and try to respond as soon as we can. If we don't respond in a matter of seconds, just give us a day or so. We scan through the messages all the time. Just be patient. Anyhow, we're pretty much done. See you guys next time.